Those who have watched my recent episodes would certainly appreciate that I've spent quite a lot of time in the middle of Melbourne, and especially in and around Bourke Street Mall. Like the rest of the city, I was saddened and still am about the tragic events that occurred at the end of last week. Bourke Street Mall is a vibrant and exciting, and for the most part, safe place that we can all enjoy. I'm not going to allow my view of the place to be tainted by one guy in a car who simply snuffs out 5 lives, evaporating their hopes and dreams. My fear is that we will now mention Bourke Street in the same tone as Hoddle Street, Port Arthur, Lint Cafe, all because of the actions of one misguided individual that we can only hope receives the custodial sentence he deserves. I also think it is challenging for society when the weapon of choice is parked in most people's driveways. In the case of Port Arthur, we had an almost immediate response to gun ownership. With 9/11, we declared war and put troops into foreign land. But when the weapon used is an everyday motor vehicle, I think it gets a little bit tougher for society to reconcile. So apart from that, this past week has been a bit of a quiet week for myself. I haven't been out and about. I've spent quite a lot of time here in the office. I had to do quite a bit of editing for my big project, my homeless documentary, and that's another contentious issue. In the paper recently, Melbourne City Council are actually putting forward bylaws to ban sleeping on the streets, and I view this as a breach of human rights. It is human biology that we are required to sleep, and yet what they're basically saying is, well, you can't sleep on the street. But if you've got nowhere else to go, if you've got nowhere safe to go, if you've got no friends and family that you can call on to go and sleep on their couch or in a spare room, if you've got no options, where are you going to sleep? Well, of course, the street's your only answer. And I think it's unfortunate when we have Melbourne City Council, which in a lot of ways is at odds with itself. It has a homeless policy department that is trying to smooth the relationship between the government or the council and the homeless, while at the same time we've got Melbourne City Council pursuing bylaws like this, and they're also authorising defensive architecture to be built. Many people might remember that recently the Salvation Army were given a reasonable amount of money to open one of their cafes in the middle of the city at night. And some people might think that that was giving the homeless somewhere to go and sleep. It wasn't. And they were actively prodding people to make sure they were awake and stopping them from sleeping at this location. The homeless issue is only going to get bigger, and the societal and socio-economic and socio-political framework that's in place increases the pressures and stresses on society. And homelessness is just the tip of the iceberg. The amount of people we can see in the city is indicative of a larger problem. And I think that we need to start thinking about that. Same as we need to start thinking about what causes a guy to hop in his car and drive down a street that you're not allowed to drive a car on anyway and mow down 5 defenceless people. We've got to wonder what drives a person to that. No pun intended. I don't claim to be a psychologist or anything like that, but I don't think he's a psychopath who got up that morning and decided he was going to go and kill a handful of people. In the case of Martin Bryant in Port Arthur, he more than likely got up that morning and knew what he was going to embark upon. The terrorists with 9/11 knew when they woke up in the morning that's what they were going to try and achieve. But this guy, maybe for some societal pressures, all sorts, who knows what's going on in his head. And I just think he got to a point where he's like, you know what, screw this. That in no way should be taken that I condone his actions. The loss of life is abhorrent, and it's sad when anyone gets killed, but You know, when you've got young children and their whole life ahead of them, and people in their 20s and 30s, I mean, they had many years ahead. Again, like I've said, I'm not going to let this taint my view of the place. I love Bourke Street Mall and I love Melbourne. It is going to be difficult in a couple of days when I get down there and view the outpouring of grief that apparently is on show down there. Having read some of the media and watched some of the online stuff, it's it's pretty sad down there. And all I can hope that in the future it can bounce back. So that's basically it. I've had a bit of a side project this week as well. I've been looking forward to getting my bike up and running. I may very well ride into the city later in the week once I get all that done. But yeah, I just thought that it was worth mentioning, and I have spent quite a lot of time down in Bourke Street, and it's going to be quite interesting when I get back down there in a couple of days. Cheers, guys.